All right, guys. So, hey, how we doing? My name is Chuck Silver. Find me on Twitter at Chuck Silver DFS. We have a pretty large NBA slate going on today with all the news that we can possibly have on one slate. So, I think a big thing today is just going to be knowing who is questionable, who is doubtful, who's probable to play. If you've already went and looked at the DraftKings and FanDuel lobbies, everyone is kind of the tournaments are pretty small today. They were small yesterday due to baseball opening day, and then I think they made them even smaller today. So uh, I don't know. I'm gonna be mostly sticking to the night slate and the short slates. I think. The main NBA slate is gonna be such a mess. I'm still throwing some lineups in, but let's see if we can try to find an edge here. So the first thing I want to get into is the injuries today. Nikola Jokic is questionable. He got ruled out pretty late yesterday. I'm not quite sure what's going on with him. I have a feeling he's going to play though. And then Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, LeBron, Jaylen Brown. So LeBron is likely to play. Kawhi, it's 50-50. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, it's like most of these guys are 50-50. I lean towards SGA playing since they upgraded him earlier today. He was supposed to not play. Anthony Edwards probable, AD probable, Karl Anthony Towns probable, and Jamal Murray questionable. And we have even more. Jared Allen is doubtful. Miles Turner's questionable. MPJ is questionable. Al Horford, Tobias Harris, Gordon Hayward, all questionable and doubtful. Kelly Oubre questionable. Robert Williams doubtful. And KJ Martin and Daniel Gafford both questionable. So those are the main ones that we're looking at. There's going to be a few more that come up, but I think the injury situation is going to be a pretty big deal today. So we have to keep an eye on that. Pull this up. So it's kind of weird because we have 4 games starting right at 4 p.m. OKC, Indiana, Chicago, Charlotte, Toronto, Philadelphia, and Orlando, Washington. And then we have 3 more games starting at 4:30. So all the games start by 5 with one island game, San Antonio, Golden State. That's Pacific time, by the way. So we'll have a 2-hour gap before the last game. I think the last game's a pretty good one for fantasy. It's about a 20-point spread right now, which is not great, but we might be able to find something there later. So with SGA, he was out earlier. They upgraded him to questionable. Most of the time, I take players who either become questionable midday from being out or being in. I lean towards SGA playing today, basically, since they upgraded him from this morning. And then with Jokic, I'm really not sure. We'll have to see a little bit later, but I'm sorry. We have the 3 games for the night slate. Denver, Phoenix, and Sacramento, Portland as well. So this last 3 set of games is really good. The night slate is going to be pretty good today. They're all big spreads, but there's some players that we're going to be very interested from those last games. All right, so let's just jump into the model, and we're going to go ahead and look at the value plays first. A lot of these value plays are going to change. We're more than likely to get some guys later that we're going to want to get to, just guys with lower ownership. So the same thing I've been talking about the past few slates. Try to be careful with your ownership in the first games. A couple days ago, we had Drew and Giannis in that first game, and we really needed them in our lineups, at least one of them. And so one thing I will say is I'd like to avoid the values in the early games a little bit. Paying up for the studs is fine, though, because especially if we pay up for the studs in the first game and we get even better value later, it's going to work out in our favor. And just think about the combos that we're able to get if we plan for, we can't plan for specific players to be out today, I think. It's pretty hard, but just leave the roster spots open and give yourself the flexibility. So Bruce Brown showing up top of the model. I think that he's probably going to be one of the safer value plays today. His price on DraftKings 4,700, FanDuel 5,800. His ownership is not showing too bad right now, 30% and 10%. Assuming that anyone is out for this team, he's just going to fill in that role. That's what Bruce Brown does. If Jokic is out, Aaron Gordon's out, Michael Porter Jr. or Jamal Murray are out, he's going to pick up for the production that those guys are leaving. And so Bruce Brown, just an easy value play. There will probably be a safer, or not safer, but better value play. But Bruce Brown is probably the default value play, just easy guide, plug into your lineups. Bogdanovic started last game. If he starts again, he's going to look pretty good at 4,600, pulling low ownership right now. If he's in the starting lineup, this 1% on FanDuel will go up, but the 5,400 price looks pretty good there. Looks good there too. Just going down the list, some other guys. Aaron Gordon's definitely going to be in play. He's probably going to be one of my top plays today, assuming anyone on Denver is out. Mitchell Robinson, I've been really liking playing Mitchell Robinson at this cheap price on DraftKings, and it keeps getting lower, 4,300, center only. He's pulling 14% ownership. Julius Randle is out tonight, and so Obi Toppin is going to be, I think Obi Toppin is going to become a more popular value play. He's 4K on DraftKings, 5K on FanDuel. I like that they priced him up. He's pulling no ownership right now, but assuming he starts, so he didn't close last game, but he got about 8 minutes to start the third quarter, and so if we think he's going to play in 8-minute rotations, hopefully he gets that rotation to close the first half, and then hopefully he closes. Obi Toppin's going to probably end up being one of the more popular value plays today. I think we're just waiting for the news to adjust. So right now we have him projected for 25 minutes. I think if Obi Toppin plays 25 minutes, he's going to be a pretty great play at 4K, power forward and center eligible. FanDuel power forward only, which is great. Sorry about that. Just looking at some other guys, these aren't really value. Like Clint Capella and Rudy Gobert are priced up 62, 7,300, but they're showing up pretty high on the value score. With Rudy Gobert, just watch. If Karl Anthony Towns is out, it's obviously a little bit better for Rudy Gobert. His rebounding rate is up, a couple more opportunities for shots close to the basket, but it's kind of weird because Cat actually doesn't affect Rudy Gobert as much as I thought he would. But both of these guys pulling pretty low ownership. I'm going to want to go there. And Kevon Looney. So Kevon Looney's tough because it's a 20-point spread. They're playing San Antonio. If he's starting, he's probably going to be a viable play on DraftKings at 5,100. I'm not quite sure why his ownership is showing so high right now. But if he is starting, I think he's going to be fine. I'm sure there's going to be other value plays we're more interested in that come up at the center position. And it looks like, I mean, there's 26 teams playing today, so center position is going to be very valuable. So we want to be careful with how we use our utility spot on DraftKings. I mean, just looking at the value guys, like we really don't have that much value on DraftKings right now. It's a lot of guys, 5 to 7K. We have Obi Toppin, we have Dante DiVincenzo, who's fine, but so Dante DiVincenzo's fine. There's going to be a lot of guys like Dante DiVincenzo that are fine, but I think we need to consider that he doesn't get an expanded role tonight. Like the price is good for him, 4K and 4,900, but his whole team is expected to play. I don't think anyone's going to sit out tonight. And so I think we want to focus on the players who have the possibility of getting extra opportunity today. The nice thing about rostering, where did he go? About rostering Kevon Looney right now is it saves that roster spot for that last set of games. And so even if you have him in your exposures right now, we're not necessarily locking him in to play when that game starts later. We're going to be able to swap off of him for more news. Like some actual value plays looking down the list. Norman Powell's back. Let's keep an eye on the Clippers news. I like Norman Powell on the last slate, his first game back. He's coming, 4,800 and 5,300. It's not a bad price. The ownership seems reasonable. Just if Kawhi's out, Norman Powell's going to get an increased role. And Russell Westbrook's going to look pretty good for the Clippers as well. Josh Okogie's kind of tough with Kevin Durant back. I don't quite understand this 19% on FanDuel. Like I said, if you have him in your exposures to start the slate, that's great. We're probably going to end up swapping off of him, but I think we just want to save roster spots for value guys later. Russell Westbrook is going to show up as a pretty good value today, elite OF index score. Pulling no ownership, that will change if Kawhi is ruled out later. Just going down the list. Mikal Bridges, he's going to look awesome. A lot of these guys are not value, so the fact that these are all showing up under DraftKings value means that they're really good plays, point per dollar. Caruso is someone who I didn't want to play when he was pulling all the ownership, but something weird about Ayo Dosunmu, he's kind of limited to about 24 minutes right now, and so it's a little more opportunity for Caruso. They're starting him and Patrick Beverley, or they did the last game anyway. We'll see what they do today. But Alex Caruso, if he comes in at 2% ownership, I think that's going to be fine, as long as he's starting. All right, let's look at FanDuel value, see if there's anything different. So Aaron Gordon's top of FanDuel value as it is already, and we have Nikola Jokic ruled in. So if Jokic is out, Aaron Gordon's going to be one of the top plays on the entire slate. Price is appropriate on both sites. It's too cheap if Jokic is out, and this ownership will go up, so don't really pay attention to that now. Yeah, Russell Westbrook, top of FanDuel value as well. 8,300, 1 and 2%. As long as Kawhi's out, I think Russ is a great play again. They're playing Memphis. Memphis is a tough team, but Russell Westbrook has one of the highest usage rates in the entire NBA, especially when there's no one else on the court with him. I mean, none of these guys are really value, right? So I think we're just going to be waiting on the best value plays for guys that are ruled out. We'll have some of that before lock. A lot of it we probably won't. We'll probably get some right at 7:01, right after that first 4 games locks. Like an actual value play. Here, I'm going to lower this to about 6K and see who the best 6K plays on FanDuel. So Austin Reeves, Benedict Mathurin, Bogdan Bogdanovic I talked about. If he's starting, he's going to look great. Okogie, he's showing up near the top of value for us right now, so something to think about. Projected for 25 minutes. I think the 19% is kind of high, but like I said, have him in your exposures when the slate starts, and you'll have that spot for later. Let me refresh just in case something changed. All right, so thanks for letting me know, DePrince. Yeah, so Josh Okogie's the top value on FanDuel now. We saw he had 25 minutes. Now he has 28 projected minutes, and he's going to be the top value on FanDuel. 4,600, I mean, it's not a bad price to pay for him. So kind of like I was talking about Bruce Brown as the easy value on DraftKings, it looks like Josh Okogie is going to be the easy value. And when I say that, I'm mostly just Josh Okogie's the chalk value that you don't really feel bad about plugging into your lineup. Yeah, these guys aren't really value plays either. Austin Reeves, Mathurin, Bogdanovic, they're all above 5K. Daniel Gafford's going to come in with low ownership. His rotation has been so weird lately. I'm not that confident in his minutes, but he's going to look like a good GPP play either way. Bruce Brown, great. If the other guys are ruled out, Bruce Brown's going to look even better. So Sandro Mamukelashvili's pulling all this ownership, and I don't know, we haven't projected for 27 minutes, which is fine. The 5K price is fine. This seems so high, though. But it is one of the last games, so if you have him in your pool at lock, then we're probably going to end up swapping off of him. But it doesn't look too bad for Sandro Mamukelashvili. Yeah, the value plays are kind of gross right now. Charlotte's going to be a pretty interesting one. Let's take a look at Charlotte. So Dennis Smith got ruled out 1 second after lock last slate, which was really frustrating. Killed a lot of us, but if you managed to get to a few percent of Theo Maledon, he had a monster game. He looked really good. They priced him up today. They say Dennis Smith is playing. If he's ruled out before lock, then we'll adjust things. But as it is right now, I would expect him to play. He's projected for 25% on FanDuel versus the 2 on DraftKings. He is a better play on FanDuel, just the way that the pricing and roster construction works. But the 6,800 on FanDuel at 2%, or on DraftKings at 2%, it seems a little bit low. I think that we can take a couple shots on Dennis Smith if he plays, but I think the main guys we're interested in from Charlotte, like PJ Washington's price came way up, and he had a monster shooting game last game, but he's borderline elite play today. A lot of these guys I'm going to talk about where they're too expensive, but we got to take some GPP shots on a few guys, I think. And PJ Washington, his price is the highest it's ever been. Max price PJ Washington. So we're not really playing him that much. The 0% on DraftKings makes sense. 7% on FanDuel, it seems fine. We got to see who's starting between for the centers today. Whoever's starting is going to be fine. Whoever's not starting is probably not going to play. They've been kind of weird with the rotations with their big men. Let me just see. So they usually have Kai Jones, and Kai Jones had a great game last game. I think he's expected to sit tonight. And so whoever starts between Nick Richards and Mark Williams is going to be a fine value play. And then if Kelly Oubre plays, I'm going to like him as a tournament play too. All right, well, let's jump into ownership. I didn't want to spend too much time on value. I think the best value plays are going to come up later, and it's really hard for me to speculate on them. When looking at value on FanDuel, what's the preferred price range to look at? Well, it's all relative to the slate. And so to me, I think a value, it's usually a guy under 5K, but maybe on yesterday's slate, that was a short 2-gamer. We didn't have any value. You can consider those guys in that 5K, 6K range value. On FanDuel, it's tough. Just play with the salary slider right here. Put it down to 5,400. Say, see who's showing up at the top still. I think we want to focus on the guys pulling low ownership that have reasonable chances of getting there. Right? There's times players like Matisse Thybulle, Aaron Holiday show up here, and Matisse Thybulle can get there. Of course, when he's 1-2% owned. But players like Aaron Holiday, where they're just not going to pick up Justin Holiday, I'm sorry, on the Mavericks. He's shown up at the top of our value sometimes, projected for 1%, and like he is going to be a good play, and it's 1%. It's not supposed to work out that often, but focus on the guys that we know are getting playing time. I don't think we have to get too contrarian with our value plays. We can get contrarian with our pay-ups. We have all the pay-ups in the world today. All right, so let's just look at what the chalk is as of now. So this is going to completely change. But right now we have Trendon Watford as the highest exposed player on both sites. I'm not sure what Portland wants to do with him. They shut down Dame. They are incentivized to tank. They do not want to win games. Sacramento, I mean, they're decent favorites tonight, about 14-point favorites. If Trendon Watford plays, he's probably going to be a top play on the slate. It's just there's not a lot of guys on this team pulling that much usage. We had Keon Johnson rolled out pretty late last time with that broken finger that he suffered in the shoot-around. And so let's actually take a closer look at Portland, because I think this is one of the big spots. There's a few teams that are very important. I'm going to get into them. So Trendon Watford, if he plays, fantastic play. If he doesn't play, Drew Eubanks is going to be a top play. He's probably a top play as it is. Either way, late game, so we can swap him out if we need to. Kevin Knox is getting all the playing time, and with Kevin Knox, he was statistically the worst player in the NBA like 3 or 4 years in a row. If you're familiar with 538, they do like, what is this player worth? And I think his worth to a franchise was something like negative 90 million over 4 years. He's better now, and they're running him all the playing time, and he can handle. So one thing when he started entering the rotation, like I'm hesitant to play him because it's Kevin Knox, and he's not great. But if he's going to play 30 plus minutes, he's going to get all the usage on this team. He's taking all the shots that Shaedon Sharpe's not taking. So Kevin Knox, I think, is going to be all right. These ownerships, I mean, it seems high, but like I said, we're probably going to be able to swap off him later anyway. Nas Little, 57% on FanDuel. It's just a little bit high. I mean, this guy's been super chalk a few slates in a row, and he paid off the first time when he was not chalk. And then since he's been chalk, it's just not there. So I think from that first time he went off, we saw him take 20 shots. So it's like, okay, everyone's out. Nas Little, we didn't typically think of him as a player that's going to step into a larger role, taking 15 to 20 shots. But he did, and lately he's just been not great. Vegas still has his player props decently priced, and so they don't think he's this price is probably appropriate for him today, the 4,700 on FanDuel. I think the field thinks it's too cheap since they're going to him 57%, but if you have Nas Little in your lineups, even more so than the other guys, he's just a placeholder for later. Like, still play Nas Little. We don't want to completely fade a 60% on guy. He's not going to come in 60%, but I would try and find any other value option. There's going to be a dozen guys at this price that outscore Nas Little today. It's just that Nas Little is, again, the easy guy who we project for 30 minutes. If he gets to 30 minutes, it's not bad. But with the emergence of Shaedon Sharpe, this is the guy I'm most interested in on Portland. Again, another max price guy, 7,900, 7,700, projected for 5 and 14% ownership. We haven't projected for 40 minutes. I'm pretty sure he played more than that last game. So Shaedon Sharpe has been about a fantasy point per minute in this new role. I think he can be even better. It's against Sacramento. Great game. He is blowout proof. I think they want to run him 40 plus minutes no matter what. So he's one of my favorite guys to get to today, one of my favorite tournament plays. Keep in mind, he's 5% on DraftKings, 14% on FanDuel, so I'm not going to go nuts. If I have maybe 15% on DraftKings, I'm 3x the field. That's a ton. And if I have 25% on FanDuel, like almost 2x the field, and that's just a ton of lineups with Shaedon Sharpe. But one of the guys who I have a lot of confidence in his minutes today. Matisse Thybulle again. When he's showing up at this 2% ownership, I think he's fine. He's a better play on FanDuel because of the steals bonus. He hits threes too, but I think we can count on the steals and blocks more for Matisse Thybulle, pulling 17% ownership. So we can see right away this team is pulling all the ownership, especially on FanDuel. It's fine. It's the last game of the night. I think we want to have players from this game. Like I said, just keep your options open. And if we get to this game and maybe we don't get those other options, like these guys are going to be pretty owned. I don't think any of them are going to come in quite this high. Just since it's the last game, people are going to swap off before then. But this is a very important game. So let's take a look at Sacramento on the other side too. So compared to Portland, Sacramento is pulling zero ownership. It's like 12% total ownership for the entire team. De'Aaron Fox and Demantis are the two studs, of course. Both elite plays today. Demantis about 10K on both sites, and De'Aaron 8K on DraftKings versus 9,100 on FanDuel, projected for 5% and 1% ownership. Demantis is 1% play on both sites. I think they're fine. Like, it's a 20-point spread, so we can project... It's 13-point spread? Sorry, this is a 13-point spread. Golden State and San Antonio is the 20-point spread. So 15-point spread, we're almost in blowout territory. If it's a 15-point game with like 7 minutes left, a lot of the time De'Aaron Fox and Demantis are still going to be on the court. And so we do fear losing that last 6-minute rotation, which is for guys like Demantis and especially for De'Aaron Fox, the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter are the most valuable fantasy minutes out there. And so it's a risk to play them, but at this low ownership, I don't mind taking some GPP shots. And then Kevin Werder's been fantastic, but his price is also up. With De'Aaron Fox in, I don't think we can expect that usage and production that he's had the past couple of games. But at 1% and 2%, these guys are going to be fine GPP shots. We're playing all the Portland. If Portland manages to keep it close, these guys are going to be on the court. It's going to be a high-scoring game. So I think we want to get to Sacramento a little bit more than the field. Even the bench guys like Malik Monk, his price is a little bit more than I want to pay. If we have maybe 1% or 2% Malik Monk in our pools, Keegan Murray's getting a lot of playing time. This is a guy who randomly will hit like 5 threes in the first quarter and not do much for the rest of the game, but just a contrarian play to everyone else. There's a couple. I want to look at Denver because this is an important spot on the slate too. Right away, sorting by ownership. Bruce Brown pulling all the ownership on DraftKings, and then no one else is above 10%. If you want to play KCP as a slight pivot off Bruce Brown, I think that's fine. 1/4 of the ownership. Bruce Brown is a better fantasy producer. We have more confidence in Bruce Brown to get there tonight. But at the ownership difference, like KCP has paths to get there. He can hit threes. He can get a couple extra steals. And so I think he's going to be fine, especially if, say, Jokic is out. So it looks like we're projecting Jamal Murray to be out already. And so Bruce Brown already going to be a top play. I prefer to get to Bruce Brown than some of the other guys that we were just looking at on Portland. MPJ pulling in low ownership, but the problem with MPJ is he really just contributes points and a couple rebounds, and so he's still going to be a tournament play. He can hit, he can score points, and with Jamal Murray out, he's probably going to get more opportunity. If Jokic plays, there's no way he comes in this low, but against Phoenix, Phoenix is not a bad team. Like, this game should be close. He has DeAndre Ayton on the other side. Doesn't matter. Jokic is matchup proof. At 11,006 and 12K on FanDuel at these ownerships, I'm gonna be over the field on Jokic tonight, assuming that he plays. If he ends up ruled out, it shouldn't be a problem. We have enough options from those last 3 games in that last set to make some swaps. You're probably gonna have other roster spots open anyway from the Portland game. And then, Aaron Gordon's just going to be one of the top plays. Christian Brown is going to be kind of interesting. Maybe if he draws the start for some reason, 3,400 on DraftKings is not too bad. He had a pretty crazy dunk last night. He looks pretty good. It's going to be a value play that no one is getting to. So I wanted to get this best center on FanDuel. The way that I do this is we'll just sort by the OF index, and we'll go ahead and select FanDuel position center. And right away, we can see the top 4 projected centers in OF Index are pulling less than 10% total ownership on both sites, 8% on both sites. And so it's tough to get to these guys today since we have we have every center in the NBA available today to play in our rosters. And so paying 10K for a center, it's going to be a contrarian look today, but this is one of the things you can do. Like, you're getting a low-owned guy, and your roster construction is going to be slightly different from the field if everyone's, getting to the pay-down centers, Drew Eubanks, Mamukilishvili. Those two are pulling over 25% ownership. So half the field is going to be getting to these guys. They have power forward eligibility, so it's a little bit different. And it's not great to think in terms like this, but just imagine Mamakilashvili and Drew Eubanks both put up 30 fantasy points. Like, that's a good game, almost a 6x from both players. But if Jokic puts up 75 or Anthony Davis puts up 66 again, Joel Embiid 67, it's going to be really hard to make up those points. Now, there's probably going to be a guard or forward that puts up a monster score today, but just like these top three players, and not as much Demantis, but still a little bit. These top three players are three of the only plays on the slate capable of putting up 60 points regularly. Anthony Davis came in with no ownership last game. I think it was because LeBron was back, but it obviously doesn't matter. He put up a monster score. So he's still capable of getting there. And at these ownerships, I think it's too low. I think we want to take some shots. Like I said, it's tough to get there, and you will have a very unique lineup construction if you do. And I think that's a good play today. And let's look at DraftKings centers too. And actually, let me see if there's a couple mid-range guys in here as well. Like, Cat's pulling a lot of ownership. Big fan of Cat right now at his price, 8,100. He looks great. He's back from injury. So Cat at 8,100 I think is a great play. Elite on the OF index, great value score. His ownership isn't too bad, and he's power forward eligible. Kristaps Porzingis is one of the most frustrating players to play in DFS because he's going to go for 60 or he's going to go for like 22. And you know when he's going for 60 because he has 30 fantasy points by the end of the first quarter. So 9,500 and 9,600, the price is up a little bit, but I think he's fine. The ownership's not too bad. I actually don't think it's a great matchup against Orlando, but it's Kristaps Porzingis. I think he's more of a tournament play than a 20% play. I'm probably not going to have that much on FanDuel. 11% on DraftKings is probably great to take some shots on, but one thing I'm going to consider also is Kristaps is 95 and 9,600. I can just pay a little bit more and get to these guys, and I think I would because it leaves me the flexibility to make swaps later. Kristaps plays in that first game against Orlando right at lock. And so I'm really going to like these three. And when I say that, like, these guys are projected for 2% ownership. I might have, like, maybe I'll have 10% of Jokic, 10% of AD, and 6% of Embiid, something like that, maybe even less. Like, we don't have to go crazy. Just have these guys in your player pool, and we're just hoping to hit the right combo. Would I play Bridges Dinwiddie together or Bridges and Trae Young? So the thing with playing teammates together, I mean, we saw it yesterday. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were both in the winning lineup. Let's take a look at the Nets. I usually don't like to restrict myself from playing players from the same team. I think it's okay to play two studs from the same team. For example, Mikal and Spencer Dinwiddie, even though their prices are both about 8K. I think it's fine. I just don't want to lock myself out of combos, even in this huge 13-game slate. Now, for example, I probably wouldn't play like Mikal, Spencer, Cam Johnson, and Nick Claxton together, but I think the only restriction I'm going to set on that, I'm probably just going to do max 3 from every team tonight. Max 3 players from each team, and I'm going to go in and do some, specific groupings, but I think it's fine to play superstars together. Imagine if this game goes to overtime or something, then you have a pretty good, you have some pretty good leverage, and then just consider if you're playing Mikal and Spencer Dinwiddie, they probably have to keep the game close to both get there. It's a 1-point spread, so this will be a close game according to Vegas. Let's take a look at Atlanta. So you asked about, let me see, or Bridges and Trae Young. I think if you can do something with the extra 1,000 you save from playing Spencer instead of Trae Young, go for it. But it does make sense where if Mikal has, that 50 fantasy point game, it's less likely that Spencer Dinwiddie does, but Spencer Dinwiddie's assist rate is one of the best in the NBA right now, and so these are two players that do have a slight correlation with each other. They share the court all the time, and so I wouldn't avoid playing them together. And then as for would I rather play Mikal and Dinwiddie or Mikal and Trae Young together, I think it's just what the rest of your lineup looks like. Can you do something with that extra $1,000, $2,000? If you can, then yeah, make that swap, and if not, then don't. The ownership is not too different. On FanDuel, Trae Young's 2%, but I think the 10K is a little bit too much on this huge slate. But he is a GPP play, even at that high price. What about Obi Toppin? Yeah, I think Obi Toppin's probably going to be one of the best value plays on this slate. He's not, let me refresh. He's not showing up yet, but Obi Toppin, like I said, he played 8 minutes to start the third quarter. I don't think he checked in again. He didn't close for sure. But if he gets, say, 8 minutes in the first, 6 minutes in the second, and 8 minutes in the third quarter. I mean, it's 22 minutes, and we don't have him projected for that much less. And if he gets that last rotation, then that's everything. So if you guys played NBA DFS last season, you remember how good Obi Toppin was at the end of the season. Don't just go in expecting that to happen again. This team is different. They have Jalen Brunson quickly, RJ Barrett, and then I think Josh Hart is kind of a big deal to affect Obi Toppin. And Isaiah Hartenstein is here too. So it's a different situation than it was last season. Obi Toppin's a great play. If he comes in at 5%, I'm probably going to have all the Obi Toppin. I expect it to come up, but I think Obi is going to be a really, really good play, even against Cleveland, because it's kind of like they don't have the guys. They just don't have other options. Obi kind of has to play, even if it's a blowout. So, like I said, New York is missing Julius Randle. He's going to be out for 2 weeks. Jalen Brunson, I'm not even sure is in right now. He might be questionable as well. And so, if Jalen Brunson is out, it's a pretty big deal. He's probably going to play though, and so Jalen is going to be a fantastic tournament play. 8K, 8,500, less than 10% on both sides. RJ Barrett's going to look good too at this 6K price. He's going to come in low ownership. I'm going to like that as a tournament play. And then if you want to get to Josh Hart, let's say Obi Toppin's ownership jumps up to above 30% on both sides. I think Josh Hart is going to be a decent pivot. I know he's more expensive, but if Obi Toppin fails, Josh Hart is one of the reasons. Josh Hart could close over Obi Toppin in a close game. He could take the minutes away from him. And so Obi's good. Obi's good. And then kind of the same with Hartenstein. Yeah, to Prince. Another pivot off of that, that cheap power forward. Like, it's direct leverage. If Obi Toppin fails because Isaiah Hartenstein gets the playing time and has a good game, it's crazy leverage. Projected for 0% ownership. But I think we want to keep an eye on that starting lineup. I think Obi starts tonight. All right. See if we can get through some other chalk here. Like Spencer and McHale are both two of the highest exposed or highest projected owned players on the slate. They're both great plays. I think as long as they stay at this price, I'm very happy to have them both in my lineups every day. And one thing I want to mention about Darius Garland, let's look at Cleveland real quick. So if Donovan Mitchell plays today, Darius is still going to be a good play. If Donovan Mitchell's out, Darius is going to look better. Karis LeVert's going to probably jump into the starting lineup, and we're going to be fans of Karis today. As it is, we already have him projected for 33 minutes. There's a possibility he could start too if Darius and Donovan are in. We got to see what this Cleveland team wants to do. They're playing New York. They might want to go a little bit more defensive. They have Lamar Stevens, who can fill in the starting lineup instead of Isaac Okoro. Yeah. A couple other guys on the ownership. Kevin Knox, I would expect this to stay the same or go up. His usage is going to be high when he's announced in the starting lineup, especially if Watford is out. He's going to look like just a solid play. It's gross, but I think it's fine today. Tari Eason. Tari Eason's a guy I'm not sure about. We'll have to see what his ownership looks like later. If it stays around this level, I don't think that's too bad. The price is a little higher than we want to pay, but we can see what's going on there. And no one else is really pulling too much ownership right now. I mean, like Mitchell Robinson's in here. I think this is actually kind of high. I think that's going to come down 14%. Karl Anthony Towns right around 13% on DraftKings. Great play. Then on FanDuel, the top exposed guys. Nas Little and Trenton Watford are 1 and 2 right now. I completely disagree with Nas Little. He's been like uber chalk the last couple times that he was starting for this Portland team. He's 4,700 on FanDuel. Like, it's not a bad price, but there is fear of him getting benched. He's not blowout proof. He can get benched even if the game is close. And so he's fine. Like, he's a good play. He's the top of our... Is he even? No, the model thinks he's a terrible play, actually. Nas Little. Nas Little is about the 174th best value play on FanDuel today, according to the model. So, I think I'm letting my bias play into what I'm talking about right now a little bit, but the model kind of agrees with me. Nas Little is the worst value play on this slate, and he should have 0% ownership. Look at all these guys, even at 30 minutes. So I will say, because he's going to be so owned, and if you're mass multi-entering, making a lot of lineups, you probably can't avoid Nas Little all the way. And then if you're using him as a roster placeholder for possible news we get later, Try and have some idea of the guys that could get ruled out that you would swap to. Or if you're just okay playing Nas Little, that's fine too. But I think there's no way he comes in at 50% on FanDuel. We're going to get some news, but this might be the best, like the biggest edge that we can have today, just playing less of Nas Little in the field. Like I said, he's going to be super owned. If you're mass multi-entering, you still want him in your player pool, I think. But if you're only making a couple of lineups, it's pretty risky since he's going to be on half the field's lineups. But what if he puts up like 12 fantasy points again? You're just in such a good spot, especially if we're getting to a great value play that the field isn't getting to. It's infinite leverage. AD and LeBron, they need the win. You think LeBron gets full run? I think LeBron's good to go. I think he was fine last game. Let me take a look. What do we have LeBron projected for? So we have him projected for 33 minutes. I actually love LeBron as a value, or not a value play, but a really good GPP play. Projected for 0% and 1% ownership. If no one's going there, I think it's fine. His name is LeBron James. He's really good at basketball. Like, he's coming back from an injury, but he took something, so he's not hurt anymore. He's good to go. Yeah, at 0% and 1%, it's pretty fantastic. He's actually much lower in the model than he usually would be. He's way down here. But like I said, it's LeBron James. He's coming in for 1% ownership. I think we can take some shots. So now we're going to look at these studs at the top of the model. Jokic, AD, John Morant, Steph Curry, Joel Embiid. These are the top 5 studs of the day. And all of them are pulling no ownership. Jaw's pulling 16% on FanDuel. Seems fine, playing the Clippers. But these other guys are pulling no ownership. And even if we expand that to a Kawhi, I don't know. I think there's a lot of edge in playing these top guys today. We don't have the great value yet, but I'm pretty confident we will. And so, like I said, let's say you want to play Joel Embiid from this first set of games, and you're not quite confident in the value plays you have in those lineups. I think it's okay because I'm pretty, like, there's 13 games. You know, I don't want to speculate and tell you guys to do this and screw you out of swaps later, but I'm sure we're going to get some value plays that open up later that will allow our lineups to look better. And then let's say Joel Embiid has that big game. We're going to be pretty happy to have that 2% stud locked in when no one else can get there. Let's try and see which other studs look really good. So Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were questionable. This is kind of a big deal. If one of them sits, the other one's going to look great. Their price, like, Jason Tatum's price on DraftKings, I think is great. 10,300. I think that's really good. 11,000 on FanDuel is probably appropriate. And then for Jaylen Brown, I would usually like him to be in that, 85, 8,600 range, but this is fine. 9,200 and 9,400 at no ownership against Utah. It's a great matchup for him. And as for the other guards, if you were in the Discord yesterday, you heard me talk about Malcolm Brogdon was my favorite option because he was the lowest owned out of these guys, and he was the cheapest too. But they're all pretty low owned today. I think we want to see a starting lineup. If these two guys are out, remember how good Derek White's been when he is the main guy on the offense. This ownership will come up if those guys are out and Derek White is the starter. But at 6,100 on DraftKings, and honestly, even the 7K on FanDuel, Derek White's going to be a pretty great GPP play if these two are out. Kind of the same with Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon. They're just going to get a bigger role. Grant Williams, if these two guys are out, Grant Williams is going to start. And if his price was 1,000 cheaper, 3,500, he'd be a top value play. At 4,500, he's still a value play. We have him projected for 22 minutes. That will go up if those studs are ruled out. But Grant Williams is someone, I think he's a little bit too expensive to be considered. So I would rather focus on these other guys. Vucevic. The thing with today, there's 26 teams playing, and so if you like a guy that no one's talking about, it just, there's 26 teams. It's hard to talk about everyone. I'm sure I missed a few guys that are going to be important. Join the Discord. Instructions in the description below, and you can come in the Discord later, and we can talk about it. But Vooch, 11% on DraftKings, 6% on FanDuel. One thing I will say about Vooch, his prop lines were all good today. I think I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but it would be a good score if he hit his prop lines for these prices. He's playing Charlotte. Charlotte is not the worst team on a defense guarding big men anymore, but they are still among the worst. They're not very good. So Vooch looks good. It's hard to target him when DeMar and Zach LaVine are in, but the other two guys in the starting lineup are Patrick Beverly and Alex Caruso. Assuming they go with that same starting lineup again, they might slide Patrick Williams in there, depending on the matchup today. It depends who's starting for Charlotte if Kelly Oubre's in, but I don't know. These guys seem okay. I think Vooch is probably the guy I'm most likely to get to from this team, just compared to Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. But I think that these three studs, so these three Chicago guys are three guys I'm almost never excited about playing when all three of them are in. But I do recognize that, players have good games. DeMar can do it. LaVine can do it. Vooch can do it. So if you mix these guys in, I think that's fine. I think Vooch is just a GPP play today, though. But at the ownership, he's not a bad one. So I'm gonna be getting out of here soon. I know it's kind of jumping all over the place. It's hard to talk about everything since there's so much uncertainty. But if you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Be around for a few more minutes. I just want to see if there's any other teams that we really want to go through. See if we got any news during the show. All right, so we did get some Spurs guys that are now questionable. Doug McDermott and Keldon Johnson are now questionable. Let's take a look at the Spurs real quick. So this is a 20-point game. The Spurs versus Golden State. Golden State's projected to win by 20. 19.5. So if Keldon Johnson plays, I don't know. Vegas thinks it's going to be a blowout, so I don't think that we have to be like, well, what if it doesn't blow out? Because I think that's silly. If we're trusting Vegas when they say it's not going to be a blowout, we should trust them when they say it is going to be a blowout. And so with Zach Collins out, Sandro Mamakilashvili is going to draw the start. He's pulling all the ownership. Again, I think it's fine to have him in your lineups at lock, but I'm going to try to swap off of him by the time that game starts. Let me just see this. Yeah, I'm really not sure about the Spurs situation. I think if these guys are out, like say Keldon Johnson's out and Doug McDermott's not going to affect much, but if they're both out, it just opens up more usage for Devin Vassell, who is a good player, but he's kind of capped at 30 minutes. Pop isn't playing any of these guys over 30 minutes, maybe Keldon Johnson. But that's kind of just the problem with these Spurs guys, that their ceilings are all just hard capped. It's possible they could get more than 30 minutes today, but I mean, we have Keldon projected for 30 and a half. If he's out and maybe Doug McDermott's out, that's going to open some playing time. Guys have to be on the court, but Pop's just going to mix it up. He's not really going to let one guy just keep running out there. With that said, Blake Wesley 3,300 is going to look fine if a couple guys are ruled out. Keita Bates drop. I'd like him to be a little bit cheaper, but 5K, 13-game slate might not be necessary. Same with Branham and Devontae Graham. But that's kind of an interesting situation. It's the last game, so... I just want to make sure there's not like a team I really missed. Let me just make sure from these first 4 games, this first set of games, Chicago, Charlotte, we talked about. If the Charlotte guys are in, they're going to be great value play or great tournament plays. And if those Charlotte guys are out, Kelly Oubre and Dennis Smith, we're going to be looking to the guys behind them. Teo Maledon's price is up, but he played, 33 minutes in the previous game. And so just keep an eye on that starting lineup, and let's pay attention to the ownerships. Like Svi Mikhailu's price came way up. I'm not sure if we're still going to get there. He's probably still a tournament play. He put up 50 last time, so... Orlando, Washington is a game I'm mostly trying to avoid, but maybe if another person's ruled out on Washington, it's looking okay. Denny Avdia at 7,100 is probably going to be an okay. Like, he's showing up pretty good. It's not the worst play for 7,100, I guess, at low ownership. Projected for 33 minutes, he's a rebounding machine. I will say I don't love matchups against Orlando, but these guys are tournament plays. Corey Kispert, too. Monte Morris put up a monster last week. He at 3%, we can slide him in, but we just have more options than we did last time, and he was already low on last time. Just make sure I didn't miss any. All right, so my favorite core plays. So there's a reason I haven't really been talking about a core building a lineup. I just think that the slate changes so much in the next 2 hours that anything that I put is just going to lead people to make mistakes. And so if Trendon Watford plays, Trendon Watford is going to be in the core. Bruce Brown is probably going to be in the core no matter what happens. This is for DraftKings. I'm pretty certain Obi Toppin is going to be in the core, but I need to see how that looks in a little bit. He's 4K on DraftKings. If he's in the starting lineup, right now we're projecting 25 minutes. I think that's an appropriate minutes projection. At 5%, he's going to be great. So Obi Toppin is going to look good, but keep an eye on him. I want to say, so again, these guys aren't core, but I'm just talking about guys I like relative to their ownership. It's really tough. I'm almost positive that the top of ownership is going to change drastically in the next 2 hours. But Shaden Sharp is one of my favorite tournament plays today. I think he's playing 45 minutes, and even at this max price, they're playing Sacramento. He's not pulling much ownership, and I mean, we haven't projected for 40, and I think he could play even more. So Shaden Sharp, one of my favorite tournament plays today. Real quick, when I'm building lineups, do I start with studs or value first, or go by ownership? I start with value first. Like if you're hand building a lineup, you really want to just plug in, say, the easy value plays, Bruce Brown, maybe Obi Toppin, whoever you find, and then see how much salary you have left over after you plug in the best value plays, and then start to plug in some studs, maybe see who's a lower owned stud. Like today, it doesn't matter. All the studs are low owned. You can play whoever you want. Anyone on this list, anyone on this screen right now is a really good play today because they're all pulling low ownership. And they're all at the top of the model. So then, okay, so we select our studs, and ownership doesn't matter today. You can play anybody. And then once we select our studs, maybe we need a little bit more salary. We can move around the value guys. Maybe we have salary left over. We can upgrade one of the value guys, or maybe we find our... But like I said, the ownership's so low today, so I don't think we have to do... You don't have to do anything to get different today as long as you're not playing the exact chalk lineup. Like if you have one or two of these guys in your lineup, you're almost guaranteed to be unique. So do not spend too much energy trying to get different today, trying to be unique. You're going to be unique almost no matter what, as long as you just don't play the super chalk. Levine is not a guy I'm targeting, but it's not... I mean, I'm not avoiding him. His ownership, he's pulling ownership today. It's not a terrible matchup against Charlotte. He's kind of just a guy, when he shows up in my lineups, I'm okay with it. Cat with AD run back. So I don't really consider that stuff too much. Since I use the builder to make my lineups, I don't put like, you know, if, it's just, if it happens, it happens. It's not something that I really focus on, though, getting runbacks from the other team. If I think that Cat is the best play around 8,100, or let's say it's tied, I think Cat and, let's see someone else around 8K. So Cat's 8,100 and Vucevic is also 8,100. Let's say I'm perfectly tied between them and I have Anthony Davis in my lineup. I think it's okay to use that as a tiebreaker and go with Karl Anthony Towns. But other than that, I don't consider it too much. Maybe if I have three players from one team, we want to see if there's a good run back on the other side. It's a little different if we're pulling a bunch of value plays, for example, from Portland tonight, if we're playing a bunch of Portland guys. I don't think it's mandatory to play someone from Sacramento, just because no one on Sacramento stands out as an obvious play, right? Demantis is a pay up. De'Aaron, I think De'Aaron's price on DraftKings is great, but he's not an obvious play. And so let's say we have three Portland guys and zero Sacramento guys in our lineups tonight. I think that's fine. Let's say it's a different situation, though. Let's look at, just want to do one example. It's probably okay. Will we get a sheet today? So I usually post my top plays in the Discord about an hour before the slate locks. On the days I do the YouTube live, I usually don't. But today I will post something like, or I'll react to the news at least in the Discord. So instructions in the description below. Join the Discord and join the Occupy site so you can get the updated model, because this is going to be drastically different by the time the slate starts. I'll go ahead and refresh it. You can get one last look at it right now. And like I said, just pause the video and just look at these values. Look at the data on this table right now. Get what you need. OF index sorted by DK value. Pay attention to the ownerships. Sorted by FanDuel value. Pay attention to the ownerships. Multi-eligible positioning. And like, if you're playing with the model yourself, I would say just, play with all the filters. Like lower the salary, see who's showing up as in high OF index, but maybe their value's not showing up, or they're showing up high value but low OF index. see ownership, see guys like, let's see, for example, Mikal Bridges and De'Aaron Fox, like they have the same, they're basically the same player today, different positions, but Mikal Bridges for 20% versus De'Aaron for 5. Mikal deserves more ownership today, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily incorrect, but use this as kind of a thing to just like these are basically the same play today, and Mikal Bridges is playing much more ownership, so. Just play with the model, and because it's unlike any other site out there, any other projections, if you build a lineup using the model, it's almost always going to be unique anyway. And I think it's such a big advantage in the NBA. Now, right now, the NBA is a nightmare. I think the NBA is terrible for DFS, and it will be for the next 2 weeks until the end of the season. And then when the playoff starts, it's even different because it's tighter and the minutes are more projectable. So yeah, just NBA season stuff. I would say the biggest advice I could give you is to play less over the next 2 weeks. But just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. If you guys have any last second questions, go ahead now. Otherwise, I think I'm going to get out of here. But join the Discord, see what's going on, and let's have a good slate tonight, guys. Bruce Brown lower on FanDuel. Is he still a good play? So Bruce Brown, we're sorting by FanDuel value. Where's Bruce Brown? 13.8. Yeah, Bruce Brown's still a good play. So looking at FanDuel value, 15.4 versus 13.8. Like there is a difference. Josh Okogie is a better value play, better points per dollar according to the model. But I don't think that's a big enough difference to where we're saying, you know, we're going to play Josh Okogie over Bruce Brown every single time. Use the ownerships, but like if two guys are tied, a lot of the time I'm going to go with the lower owned guy, but you still have to consider what the rest of your lineup looks like. If the rest of your lineup is already contrarian, it's almost unnecessary to keep going contrarian. Like you can play the popular value plays. They're popular because they project the best. So yeah, Bruce Brown, as long as someone's out for Denver, I think he's still going to be a good play, but pay attention to the ownership on him because if it gets crazy, then we're going to want to avoid him. But if it, you know, it's 10% right now, let's say it comes up to 20% on FanDuel, Bruce Brown's going to look fine, I think. All right, guys, so it's a little bit rough without Eric here, but I appreciate everyone showing up. I appreciate your time, and I will see you guys